by FOIA and the Emergency Ordinance of the Young Adult Advisory Council, further known as the Council, needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It is a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. Yeah, it's a long form, y'all, but we'll get rolling just a minute. First, because each member of the council is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each council member participating in this meeting to state your name, the location in which you're participating from, and the location in which you're participating from. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear from your colleagues. Following the roll call, we'll vote on the establishment that every member can hear every other member. All right. First person here, Denver Stupinger from Fairfax, Virginia. Muhammad Rahman? Is he on yet?
I think we just got him in. So Muhammad, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, great. And where are you calling in from today?
I'm Alexandria.
Wonderful. Great to have you. Sarah Bufano?
Yes, I'm here and I'm calling in from Fairfax, Virginia. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. And if I'm pronouncing anyone's names wrong, please let me know. Kiana Simskin? I'm sorry.
Simpkins. I'm here. I'm in Virginia.
Perfect. All right, Casey Judge.
Yep, Casey Judge here, calling from Falls Church, Virginia.
Wonderful. Leslie Asino? Leslie, are you on?
I don't think she's on the call.
All right. Natalia Denise Moody.
I'm Natalia Moody and I'm calling from Fairfax, Virginia.
Wonderful. Judith Coppola.
Good evening, Sujit Coppola, and calling in from Vienna, Virginia.
Thank you. Anna McCoy. Diego Rodriguez Canberra.
Diego let me know that he was not going to be able to attend today.
Okay. Melanie Marie Stover.
Good evening, Melanie Stover, calling in from Fairfax, Virginia.
Jessica Sun.
Hello, Jessica Sun, calling in from McLean, Virginia.
Lee Jackson.
Lee Jackson, calling in from Springfield, Virginia.
Dalton Bisson.
Dalton Bisson, calling in from Fairfax. Excited to be here and meet everyone.
Welcome, welcome. And Dalton, were you with us last time?
I was not, so I'm very excited about tonight, meeting everyone, and just pumped for everything tonight. Yeah.
Awesome, great, welcome. And then I know Najma Mohammed is calling in, and she was just appointed, so this is her first meeting as well. Najma.
And Najma, we can barely hear you. Could you put your receiver up to your mouth?
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, I'm calling in from Annandale, Virginia.
All right, Najma, welcome, welcome. At this point, I will virtually pass the gavel to my Vice Chair, Lee Jackson, so that I may be heard to make a requisite motion. I move that each chair's voice, that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of the council.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and would you say who you are just for the record?
Sarah Bufano, second.
Okay, so Sarah, thank you, Sarah. Sarah has made the second. All in favor, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All that. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the nays clearly have it, so the motion carries.
Thank you. Ayes have it. Wonderful. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard at every other by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels the emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communications is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for the council to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. As such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the council and physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the council may conduct this meeting electronically through dedicated video and audio conferencing line, which we're using, and that the public may access this meeting by registering through the meeting link on the Young Adult Advisory Council website at https://economic-initiatives/young-adults-advisory-meeting-December-15th-2020, or by calling 1-844-621-3956 and enter access code 179-848-8698. It is so moved.
And there's an emotion. Do I hear a second?
Second, Casey Judge.
Casey Judge seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. And the ayes have it, so the motion carries.
All right, my last section, y'all. Finally, it is required that all matters addressed by today's agenda must address this emergency itself, are necessary to continue for the continuing in Fairfax government, and or the statutorial required or necessary to continue operations and discharge the council's lawful purpose, duties, and responsibility. It is so moved.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Second, Suja Coppola.
Okay, and the gentleman has seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. And that motion carries.
All right. So before we continue, there is one minor edit that I would ask y'all's unanimous consent on. Group 4 in the agenda is a duplicate. It says we have affordable housing listed twice, when that should actually read, and it should read civic engagement and outreach. Are there any objections to making that change? Hearing no objections, the motion is moved. All righty, y'all. So quickly before we go into our wonderful Fairfax County speakers this evening, the agenda is outlined where we are going to be tackling within our next few meetings an issue that was identified via survey that I sent out as the 4 top issues in which our council wants to address within the next 6 to 12 months. So beginning for this meeting and the 3 after, we will have experts on those topics addressing them. And then we will go into breakout groups, our subcommittees, which I'll dive into a little bit, just trying to be respectful of our FC crew online, and make some really great change and plans when it comes to our subcommittee topics. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Chris Wells from FCDOT and Nicole Whalen.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Hi, Denver. Good seeing you. Long time no see. I'm Chris Wells. I'm the Active Transportation Program Manager for the County of Fairfax, Virginia, in the Department of Transportation. Nicole Winans is here with me tonight. We are presenting on the update to the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan, which is a update and combination of the Trails Plan and the Bicycle Master Plan. But before Nicole starts, I just wanted to give you a quick high-level backdrop of where all this fits in the county. So the Board of Supervisors created the pedestrian program in 2002 and the bicycle program in 2006. I've worked on them from the beginning. The pedestrian program, unfortunately, was created in response to fatalities. We were having about 20 fatalities a year at that time. Through a combination of luck and effort and education and engineering and enforcement, as they say, the 3 E's, we were able to reduce that to about 5 a year a few years ago. But unfortunately, that has gone back up in the past few years, and we have 13 pedestrian fatalities year to date this year. The Board of Supervisors has taken this issue very seriously and has allocated somewhere above 10%, 10 to 15% of all of our transportation funding to pedestrian bicycle projects. So that has totaled $536 million over between FY 2002 and FY 2025, so over a 23-year period. So that's more than any other jurisdiction in the region, but unfortunately, that's still hardly near enough. The needs greatly outweigh the ability to respond. So with that funding, we've built and or are designing to build about 300 different pedestrian and bicycle projects. We've improved 500 bus stops that were just sticks in the dirt before they had improvements. We've done things such as replace all of the pedestrian signal heads with the LED countdown heads. We were the first jurisdiction in Virginia to have done that. We work annually to change the laws to be more pedestrian friendly, as Virginia is not necessarily a very pedestrian friendly state from a law point of view. So that's a high level description. Again, the board takes it very seriously. I think a big part of our economic development future and where we are right now is, of course, tied to building walkable, bikeable communities. So I think the support from the current board and from really all of the staff and the leadership is stronger than ever because of that needing to reach that economic development goal. So part of that is, of course, our comprehensive plan, which is where the active Fairfax transportation plan fits in. That lays out a continuing future for a network of facilities in the county. So with that, I'll pass it off to Nicole, who is the project manager for this update.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for having us tonight. It's really great speaking with you about the active Fairfax transportation plan. So let me share my screen. All right, can you all see my slides and hear my voice? Yes, okay, great. So the active Fairfax transportation plan just started about 6 months ago. So we're early in the process. We think it's going to be a 2-year process. So we are catching you early, and we haven't had a public launch yet. So you may have not heard about it in the press. We have a website, but otherwise there's a lot of work going on in the background preparing for more public launch. So this is one of the first presentations we're doing in public forums. So it's great to get ahead and have you briefed before we actually go out to the public. So just a quick background, what this plan is about, and Chris mentioned it already a little bit. So the comprehensive plan in Fairfax County actually has multiple plans that address active transportation. And active transportation is walking, biking, scooting on a scooter, rolling in a wheelchair. It also includes hiking, which seems more of a recreational activity, but it actually falls under active transportation. Even equestrian, like riding a horse, would fall under active transportation, and we do address hiking and equestrian uses in the countywide trails plan. So it's a pretty comprehensive planning effort that basically addresses everything that is not in a car or another vehicle. It does still include a transit user for the most part, particularly someone that walks or bikes to the transit stop. Once they get on the bus or on the metro, they are a transit user, but for FCDOT. But until they get on the bus. They are within the active transportation realm of things. So we have two major plans, which are countywide, which is the countywide trails plan that lays out a pretty comprehensive vision of trails within the county. It's from the 70s. It has been updated a couple times. It was last updated in 2018, but it has never, or not never, but it hasn't been really broadly reviewed, particularly when it comes to, what type of facility we're planning today. A trail from the 70s is not a trail we're building today necessarily. So it does need a couple tweaks. We have a bicycle master plan, which was passed in 2014, which is countywide. That's a second image, the image in the middle. It kind of shows where primary bike routes are, and those could be on street or off street, and talks about what type of facilities, if any, are appropriate for a street as of 2014. So that also needs some updates. And then we have special area plans, which cover all our activity centers. So Fairfax County has a lot of activity centers, which are Rest and Tysons, Annandale, those places that have economic activity. And those have mostly cross sections when it comes to the description or the planning for active transportation facilities. And all these three plans sometimes provide competing recommendations. So we're trying for the first time to combine all of these different plans and guidance into one big plan. So in addition to our comprehensive plan, we also have a new player in the region, and this is the Capital Trails Coalition. It's actually a group of jurisdictions and other stakeholders like the National Park Service who envision a regional trail network. And those trails need to be already in a comprehensive plan, but we come to include all of them. So we're picking the trails that are most important for regional connectivity. We're currently in the process of updating that map. So what you see here on the slide in green are the existing trails in Fairfax County. In orange are trails that are currently under development, but it doesn't include any trails that are planned but not yet funded. So we are working with the coalition to get a couple more trails into this network in order to actually have a comprehensive network. And this will also be part of the Active Fairfax effort because we want to, right now this is more of a regional effort that is not board approved, like it hasn't gone through any formal channels. So we actually want to get this network, the designation, into the comprehensive plan. So I mentioned already a couple of reasons why we are doing this update. So in addition to outdated facility guidance and outdated design guidance for those facilities, we also have had a lot of changes in land use in Fairfax County in the past couple of years that needs to be addressed. There are new destinations, or there is maybe a trail was appropriate 5 years ago, but now we have high rises left and right and Reston, and it may need a cycle track where we separate pedestrians and cyclists from the facility. So the changing land use does require taking a new look at some of these guidance. And then we have new transit hubs that we didn't know about, or we knew about them, but they weren't quite on the planning horizon when the last plans were done. So we have new metro stations coming online. We have new express buses that go, for example, from Reston to downtown DC. So these are very popular, but they weren't really planned around. None of our park and rides were integrated in the plans. So those are new destinations we want to ensure that you can walk and bike to. And then we had the trails plan and we had a bike plan, but we actually don't have a pedestrian plan. So, and even this plan won't be planning out every single sidewalk that's needed. That's like a policy language, right? But we do want to provide some specific pedestrian safety information or pedestrian facility design information, like how many crosswalks are supposed to be at an intersection. You may have noticed some intersections only have 3 crosswalks, Why is the fourth one missing? That's a policy thing. So internally, we have wanted to do 4 crosswalks and are pushing for that, but there's actually no policy we can point to. So that's one of those things we want to address, in addition to things like lighting, streetscaping, like some of these, we don't have policies. So at a minimum, we want to provide some recommendations on what this should be to enhance the pedestrian experience and safety. And I mentioned the conflicting facility types. So we want to end up with one facility that is recommended for one location. So when developers develop, that they understand which one they're supposed to implement. Right now, sometimes they have 3 different recommendations. Project goals are to plan a state-of-the-art active transportation system that serves all ages and abilities. And that's important because in the past, particularly when it came to biking, we have focused very much on the adult commuter and not necessarily at all age groups. And also the abilities, like how experienced are the cyclists? Did we include facilities that would serve, for example, a family riding with young children or an elderly person that doesn't feel comfortable sharing the road with vehicles? So this is a state of the art. That's where the country is heading. So we need to update our plan to reflect those ideas, really make it inclusive. We need to increase our connectivity to our neighboring jurisdictions and make sure we're coordinating our plans with their plans, because they have updated their plans more frequently than ours or adopted their first plan just recently, and we need to make sure we connect well. And then again, the providing the guidance on pedestrian safety, convenience, and comfort. We're also working on a systematic safety program plan as part of this effort. So pedestrian safety has become a huge issue in Fairfax County, and the board, starting this year, really focused on trying to protect pedestrians better and make sure we don't have as many fatalities. So it does require a systematic safety approach, which basically it's a different name for Vision Zero, which is maybe something you have heard before. So we're using the term systematic safety, and it basically says like trying to design roads in a way that it prevents pedestrian fatality and not react to one. And then, of course, we are working on engaging the community throughout the projects as inclusively as possible. This project is the phased project, so we are currently in phase 1. We're planning a phase 2. Phase 1, we are working on just looking at all the plans and policies that are currently in place, reviewing the existing conditions, the community engagement, and develop vision goals and objectives and benefits for active transportation in Fairfax County. And as I mentioned, the strategic safety program plan is also, it's kind of a separate part, but it will be part of the final plan. And then phase 2, we will actually work on developing recommendations and have a comp plan amendment. So phase 1 will not have a comp plan amendment yet, and you won't see any recommendations. So that's where I mentioned we are early in the process. So this is a great time to get involved in this project. Here's a project schedule to give you an idea. We started in July, and phase 1 will end at the end of May. And we've done a lot of kind of technical work on the reviewing the plans and existing conditions. We're preparing an outreach plan, and the virtual launch of the project will be at the end of January. And then we know we can't reach everyone with a virtual platform. So we are working with our outreach experts and equity experts on targeted outreach, which will need to be in person as safely as possible to reach our communities that don't come to our meetings or won't access a web platform. So we want to hear their voice because they're often our most vulnerable. So we have an in-person launch when the weather warms up, and we can intercept people out where they are, in front of a grocery store, on a trail, at the bus stop. So that was a very short summary of a pretty big and complex project, and I'm looking forward to starting this discussion with you and having hearing your ideas and your concerns about active transportation and how that relates to what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you, Nicole and Chris. We appreciate it. The floor is open to council members with any questions you might have. Go ahead and just unmute.
Hey, Nicole. Thanks for the presentation. Is this slide available to us? Would you make it available to us?
The presentation?
Yes.
Yes, of course. And I've shared it with Graham, who can pass it on to the council members. Yes.
I guess I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Oh, okay. I guess I had a quick question. Is there like a common denominator with the accidents that have been with pedestrians? Is it something like lack of lighting? I know when we first started speaking, it seemed like prior to this year there had kind of been those accidents or fatalities, but just wasn't sure if there kind of was a common theme among them.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part? You were breaking up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was curious if there was some sort of common theme about the accidents with pedestrians. I know when Chris was speaking, he said it had kind of the trend had dropped prior to this year, but didn't know if it was a lack of lighting or, you know, those accidents happen in the middle of the night, something like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not, and if it was, you know, simple, it would be easier to respond to. You know, through all the years and throughout the region and actually, you know, the state and the United States, it's really the shared responsibility of the drivers and the pedestrians. So we certainly suspect that distracted driving and distracted walking are contributing to the increase now. In our county, you know, it seems as if more fatalities are happening when people cross mid-block, which is not jaywalking in the state of Virginia. Virginia explicitly allows a pedestrian to cross mid-block if a crosswalk is not nearby. However, more of our crashes are happening at signalized intersections, which is actually where, you know, an engineer like myself want you to cross. So those are less severe. But numerically, there's a higher number there. So we don't have adequate lighting, and so certainly when we have fatalities at night, we suspect that is an issue. No driver obviously wants to hit the person, and so if they can see them, they wouldn't hit them. But other factors that have been going on for years is the isolation that drivers feel in their cars. Cars are quieter today and have more comfort today than ever before. So a driver is much more isolated than they were, you know, 30 years ago when driving a car. So unfortunately, there's just a lot of issues. Population is aging, and unfortunately, older people above 50 are increasingly a higher percentage of fatalities and injury, and that's could just be the population. And of course, here in Fairfax, there's the exposure rate. So as more people are walking and biking, and as we encourage that through our development, the exposure risk goes up. So, you know, realistically, in a population of 1.2 million people with probably an employment population that tops higher than that, statistically, you know, our numbers are, you know, not as bad. I never want to say not that bad because, of course, you know, anybody who is killed is a terrible tragedy. But statistically, those numbers aren't. They compare well with, you know, places in the United States that are worse. However, unfortunately, no. To answer your question, there is not, you know, necessarily one causal factor that we can find either on the driver or the pedestrian. It is, you know, there's a top five, so to speak, of each, and they're all, unfortunately, often the drivers didn't do anything wrong. They just, you know, didn't see the pedestrian.
Thank you.
I have a few questions. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I think this is an exciting opportunity for something that's really important. It sounds like Active Fairfax is going to be a really great program report. So I'm excited to learn more. So a few questions for you. One, first of all, to make sure that I'm clear, because you said that you're combining a number of different reports together. Does this mean this is going to replace like the 6-year transportation priorities plan, which I know is ending in 2020? Second of all, I see that one of your main tenants on the website, at least, says to encourage livable street design through the development of tools and products that ensures our transportation network connects people to where they live, work, play, learn, and take transit, which I think is excellent. But that makes me wonder, can you talk a little bit more about how, if at all, you're going to be working with either transportation, the transportation network within, Fairfax County, and also, I guess, developers or anything else you'd have to be involved in to make sure that we do have this livable street design that you mentioned. So thank you.
Sure. So first of all, the Transportation Priorities Plan was originally 2014 to 2020. We did just extend that through 2025. Unfortunately, we weren't able to add new projects. The funding needed to continue with the previously approved projects. But those are the funded projects. So the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan will hope to influence future funding decisions by giving a prioritization guidance to the Board of Supervisors, such as based on equity, such as based on pedestrian demand, gaps in the network, so on and so forth. These are things, of course, that staff has done all along from a technical knowledge point of view. But again, as Nicole's pointed out, there's never been that policy guidance to help. And of course, in Fairfax, just like any place else, our elected leadership feels the pressure from citizens and citizens groups, and so sometimes the loudest voices get the attention, and that is not necessarily the most equitable way to distribute things. So, unfortunately, from a staff perspective, we've known that our underserved populations in corridors that are heavily transit dependent and don't have car ownership, they have been disproportionately victims of pedestrian crashes and fatalities. So for 18 years, we have been adding facilities to the Columbia Pikes, the Route 1s, the Route 7s, areas that we know that a diverse population is in need of these facilities. But again, there's been no policy guidance. So the Active Fairfax Transportation Plan will hope to influence future funding, such as the Transportation Priorities Plan, with guidance along that regard. Yes, to the complete streets, to the livable streets discussion, we absolutely work with the transportation providers, the transit providers, and the developers. In Fairfax, I was once told that 98% of our infrastructure comes through the development process. And certainly in these places like Tyson's and Reston today, the developers are responsible for building their streets and everything that goes with it. So there's a lot of effort that goes into making those walkable and bikeable. Today's developers are more understanding that it improves their bottom line to have these type of neighborhoods built this way. So some of them are even pushing to have private streets so that they're not having to be constrained by the Virginia Department of Transportation's rules about road design and construction. By the way, in Fairfax, our roads are 99.99% VDOT roads. And so while VDOT has come a long way in being more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, they still are, a historically a state highway administration. So some of our developers, such as Mosaic, their internal streets are all private streets, and that allows them to do some innovative things like not have a curb between the sidewalk and the street and things like that. But then they have to solve things like stormwater runoff and things like that in innovative ways. So there absolutely is a big reliance on development. Of course, our comprehensive plan and things such as the active Fairfax transportation plan guide that, but there's always a lot of effort that goes into each and every zoning case and building development to try and get it right. We operate our bus systems. We operate the Fairfax Connector system, of course, the Metro bus system, and we are always trying to integrate all of those things. But in all fairness, there's a competition for real estate. So, everything takes space, whether it's a sidewalk or a cycle track or a bus stop or parallel parking for businesses. And so every one of us and everyone involved in all these processes are often challenged because of that competition for space and the corresponding value of the real estate that we all have to work with.
Thank you so much.
Nicole, I just have one question for you. I thought it was interesting that in your remarks, you had pointed out that the plan is primarily centered on three legs, which is trails, bicycles, and special plans. But oftentimes these three recommendations can sometimes outcompete each other. I was just wondering what you viewed as the ramifications for the WMATA transit cuts that will be coming up in the near future. I know that public transit is forecasted to be having some pretty dismal budgetary numbers over the next year or so. And I was wondering what the implications of that were on the plan that you and Chris are working on.
So our plan is a long-term vision. So we are planning 40 years or so in advance. So we're expecting the transit stops to stay where they are, even if the service needs to be reduced. The region invested heavily in rail transit and bus transit, and those stops won't go away. Sometimes we reroute our buses, and that would be something we are working with our transit folks to determine where their future vision for bus routes are, even if it's just a potential bus route. But that part changes, but our Metro Rail, our VRE, and some of the other commuter rail and park and rides will probably stay where they are, and we will, our plan will assume that they will be there and they will be used, and we'll provide those planned connections and potential funding recommendations. What we are also concerned about are potential new transit stops that we don't even know about yet. There's always a discussion of actually expanding the metro, the orange line, or a whole new purple line that goes somehow into Old Potomac and into Fairfax County. There are opportunities, also new express buses, for example, between Bethesda and Tysons. Those are visions we want to kind of capture and include in the plan, even though they're not existing yet. But we know transit is absolutely key to getting people to move around and leave their car at home and get where they need to be without a car.
Exactly. Thank you. I mean, I just figured transit's one of the biggest variable factors in our county with so much influx over the next 2 years. So I was just curious how that was factoring into your thinking, but that makes sense.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. I don't even know if this is currently a thing that's already done, but I was wondering, as you build more accessible and safe or walking paths around the county, is there been an effort to coordinate in some way with like map apps like Google Maps or Waze and try to coordinate with them so that when users are trying to walk from point A to point B, that they're getting like the most maybe safe routes or tips or stuff like that?
So we have tried, particularly Google. It's not recommendable to use Google right now for particularly bike navigation because their network that they have for Fairfax County is very outdated. I mean, there's some major trails, like Route 1 trail, Fairfax County Parkway Trail, segments missing of Google, but we have offered to upload our data. There's a problem with the data agreement. So my understanding is that Google's data policy is not compatible with the county's data policy, and that's why we cannot just upload it. I have gone through and started highlighting, like clicking on the map and saying there's a trail here, but it's so much missing that it would be a very long-term effort. Maybe it needs to be some sort of mass, event where everyone starts to add missing infrastructure to get the Google map right. But there's some local data points that are a little bit better. There's Arlington has a active transportation routing app that is a little bit better than Google. I think that COG has as well, the Council of Governments, but it's still a big need. We have a bike map, which is an interactive map, but it's not a routing app on the website. It would be nice one day to have that as a routing app, but that's fiscally not feasible right now. But it's definitely helpful to have better navigation. Fairfax County is actually pretty bikeable in most areas, but it's not intuitive. They are often cuts through neighborhoods, and one really needs to know their way well around to figure out what those shortcuts are. The bike map is helpful, but it's also, you're out there, you're just trying to get where you want to be, and you don't want to check every intersection where you need to go. So signage is important. So we are doing wayfinding signage through those shortcuts to metro stations, but we can't do it countywide currently because of the vastness of the network. But there's definitely room for improvement in that regards.
In the last minute that we have, can you all speak to the timeline of a project, saying like we need 500 feet of sidewalk? How long from the proposal to it actually being done? Saying that we have land rights, right? And then also the cost associated with that to kind of give us perspective on these vast projects you are taking on.
Sure. Thanks, Denver. And unfortunately, this is the bad news part of the discussion. So the rest was the good news. The costs and the time it takes to construct things are almost embarrassing. Costs have gone up over the years. When I first started doing this, it was about $1.5 million a mile to build a sidewalk or a trail. Now we're up to $5 million a mile to build a sidewalk or trail, or even more if there's significant engineering challenges such as drainage or retaining walls or things like that. I mean, one of the biggest challenges in our county is it's a nearly 400-year-old county with a variety of development. Some roads that were the original colonial cart paths. Neighborhoods that were built in the 40s and 50s without sidewalks, and so in those type of locations, there's no room to build things. So when we build things, they come with a lot of engineering challenges. I mentioned the value of real estate. Of course, the value of real estate has gone stratospheric around here. So when we have to acquire right of way, that's a significant cost. And the utilities are so complicated. There are, under Sunrise Valley Drive in Reston, there are more than 25 underground utilities that form a spaghetti web all over the place, and those include black fiber of the federal government and things like that. So it is really challenging to do what we call retrofit construction. So again, the costs are high, and then the time it takes is actually very similar to widening a road. It takes when we've been adding signalized crosswalks to a traffic signal, that can take just 1 to 2 years. So that's quick. A sidewalk or a trail project, if it goes without complication, can take typically 3 years, but often 4 to 5 years, and we have some that take 10 years. We have one down on Telegraph Road that we had to acquire property from two different federal government properties, and we can't use eminent domain on the United States, so that's taken more than 10 years. So it's very frustrating. It's frustrating for the board. It's frustrating for staff. I have struggled with this. How come Capital One can build a 40-story building in 2 years and we can't build a sidewalk? And the answer is because they own the property. It's their money. It's their bank. They don't have to submit plans to VDOT. That is our world, and we have really worked to improve that. We've actually given VDOT money to help streamline plan review. But as I said, it's essentially like widening the road. If we're building a sidewalk, that 5-foot sidewalk needs a 4-foot buffer, 5-foot sidewalk, and 1 foot on the outside. Well, that's 10 feet on the side of the road that wasn't there before. If we're building a trail, that's a shared use path. That's a 10-foot shared use path with a buffer that varies between 4 and 8 feet. So that's another 20 feet on the side of the road. So that's essentially like widening the road. And so all of those complications, and then of course the impacts to properties. It would be one thing if these were cornfields and we could just bulldoze along, but we can't. And these are whether it's businesses or more often residential properties. We really do have a delicate balance between impacting people's front yards, taking the line of trees that line the front of their property, or things like that we have to do our best to meet those challenges and mitigate them. And of course, we're not going to use eminent domain on single family residential property owners, except in the most extreme cases. So we really need partnerships with properties. So when neighborhoods citizens ask us, hey, we need a sidewalk on this road, one of the first things we tell people is it would be helpful if you talk to your neighbors and get a petition going or something where the neighbors all agree that they would love to work with Fairfax and understand there'll be impacts to their property. And of course, we compensate for that in the right-of-way process. We compensate actually very well. But if that's your front yard and you don't understand the importance of walking and biking, often the last thing you want is the local government coming along to bulldoze your front yard. So it is unfortunately expensive and challenging. And so even though that 500 million sounds like a lot, it doesn't go far enough. And we have hundreds and hundreds of requests that are unfunded at this point. And so, again, we try and do everything we can to mitigate all these challenges. But the reality is the costs have gone up, 3 to 5-fold over 18 years. Everything, all the construction costs for roads and everything. And what we've always said is, there's a reason there's not a sidewalk there, and there's often something very difficult in the way to work with.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, I have a quick question. I live on the highway, the 2606 zip code, like the poorest zip code in the county. And as you might know, we have the Embarked coming up, and also the North Hill. So I'm just trying to understand how close are you guys working, with those projects? Because I believe in the next 10, 20 years, my community will be completely transformed by those programs. And of course, if we have a better sidewalk, a better trail in those projects, that would be great. So yeah, I just want to know, how are you guys how close are you guys working with the people and that specific Embark coming up right now on the Richmond Highway and what one?
Sure. Thanks, Mohammed. And I know we've taken a lot of your time. Route 1 Richmond Highway has been the most dangerous roadway for pedestrians in the county and the state. So we, for years, have had a goal to add a sidewalk on at least one side, if not both sides, for the entire 8 miles between Fort Belvoir and the Beltway. And we've almost successfully accomplished that. There's only a few gaps left. The gaps that are left are because of complicated land properties. And so now, as you're saying, the embark process is laying out the future, not only for the development, but the southern half of Route 1 will be widened as part of a VDOT project, and the northern half will be widened as part of the bus rapid transit project. Both of those projects will have sidewalk and cycle tracks. So that's a separate facility for pedestrians and bicycles, and lighting for the corridor. So those will all be huge improvements for the corridor, as well as the bus rapid transit will be a high capacity transit system that will serve today's residents and the future growth. So it's a really exciting transformation for Route 1. It'll be difficult. You know, there'll be a lot of businesses impacted and properties impacted. But in the end, the redevelopment of Route 1, we've been criticized for many years that we've focused on Tyson's and we focused on Ruston and we've ignored Route 1. And so that is finally changing.
Thank you so much, Chris and Nicole. And I know we weren't only supposed to have you for 30 minutes, but I appreciate you all sticking it out with us. And I'm sure there are more questions that our committee has, but we're trying to kind of somewhat respect the agenda and respect your private time and your families. Would you mind putting your email in the chat? And if people have any questions, they could reach out. Wonderful. And this is just a kind reminder to, I'm sorry.
Thanks for having us. We will.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And this is just a kind reminder to our council members that you can email staff, but you can't have more than one other person on that email, or it is a meeting per Virginia law. So we'll get into groups a little bit. Before we go in, Graham, I know we are a little past our agenda per the regulations put on Fairfax County by the state. Are we able to modify the agenda now? Possibly just come back for a quick 5-minute debrief at 8:25, or is that against?
We can extend the time for the total meeting. That's not a problem. You know, we have in terms of the agenda is some time frames that have been established. We've already gone through or gone over our time that's allotted for the first half. But we can extend the time. That's not a problem.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if everyone's available, of course, you know, again, wanting to respect everyone's time, but.
Yeah. Would you all be open to continuing this meeting until 8:45? I don't want to put a whole another half hour, but another 15 minutes. If not, if you're not sure, just let us know either by unmuting or putting it. Any objections? Okay, wonderful. So the breakout groups, which will ultimately be our subcommittees, were formed based on those who filled out the survey. So thank you so much who did the Google form and filled it out and identified your preferences. The 4 outstanding biggest issues in which the council here wanted to address was urban planning and zoning, affordable housing, transportation connectivity, and civic engagement and outreach. And as we're planning, we're going to be planning for 6 months. My hope is to have 2 to 3 members, 4 and some, that can serve on these subcommittees and you know, lead the efforts in these specific groups. I recognize that time is the most valued commodity that we have amongst us. So if you all can take on an issue and dive deep and work with your other allies in that space, that would be wonderful. Once we're assigned, Graham put some starter questions in the email that he sent to you all, and I can read them out real quick, of what we should be looking and aiming towards in this first meeting. So this first meeting is trying to set the tone of the subcommittee, the vision for at least the next 6 months, no more than a year, and what deliverables we want to bring forward. So how does the topic affect young adults? What challenges and opportunities associated with this topic impact the retention and attraction of young adults to the county? And what information, i.e. deliverables, can be a presentation, can be testimony, can be a white sheet, best practices, do we want to explore in this topic in order to define the problem and establish its goals? So we are being delivery focused. A lot of these issues that you hear with transportation, we barely touched it. And a lot of these things are 40, 50-year plans. But what can we do as a council to be effective and bring about the change that we need and properly advise the Board of Supervisors within the next 6 months and at max 12 months? Does that sound good to anyone? Any objections or edits to that?
Okay,
You go.
The four plans right now, I think that someone just put on the chat. Okay, yes, I did. I also fill out those forms that you sent and the Google Docs, but I'm not seeing talent retention and yeah, and making sure that maybe like our young adult or the high school graduating students actually stayed in the county. I think that is like one of the main thing I want to do. So can we add that? Even if no one else want to work on that, I will work on that personally. I really think talent retention is very important, and that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So the overarching topics are focusing on that retention piece, right? That's a major question we are asking ourselves, and how this topic, this aspect, are retaining and recruiting folks to our area.
And Mohammed, if it helps, what I just sent around to everybody in the group just a second ago are those scoping questions. And that second question that's raised in those scoping questions deals with that very specific question, which is how does this thing, whether it's transportation connectivity, urban planning and zoning, for example, how does that impact workforce retention and attraction? So that being kind of the ultimate charge of this group from an economic development standpoint, writ large, at how do we retain and attract the young adult population. We want to make sure that that's front and center for the discussions on each of these topics. Hope that helps.
I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. It's just just looking at these four things, it looks like kind of specific agendas. And I was thinking that would be the specific agenda and also the main agenda, because I think if we can work on that separately also, because I think that's important, because that we will have to do something other than these things that we have on the list right now. Because I don't think they have a lot to do with urban planning. Of course, they might have to do something. They might have something to do with affordable housing and transportation. But I think going into the schools and going into the universities and doing certain things to make sure our young people are, after graduation, they don't leave. It's a little bit different from. It might be a little bit different, but however you guys want to structure it, that's fine. But like I said, I think we should have a lot of focus on those.
Yeah, and then Mohammed, I think you're perfectly explaining civic education and outreach, civic participation outreach. I think that's your jam. Like, if you're okay, I think that's where we're going to schools, making sure the colleges are here, make sure they know the purpose of the county, make sure the county has their voices. I think that's perfectly captured in that realm. And if you want to be part of that committee, you can, be a voice and help lead it in a direction that you think is needed. Would that suffice for you?
This is Melanie. I also just wanted to echo what Mohammed has commented about talent attraction and retention. Certainly think that it's definitely cross-cutting across all of the four areas that we've formed in subcommittees, but that's an area that I feel very passionate about focusing on. So would it be possible to create an additional subcommittee? Or I recognize we're not a huge council and have lots of members, so I don't want to split us in too many different directions, but that would definitely be of interest to me as well.
So we cannot make a separate room for this evening to meet. Graham is maxed out with screens, unfortunately. So would we be open to possibly having talent acquisition, civic education, and outreach be a committee? where we specifically put talent acquisition or talent retention?
I'm open to either. I think that would be great if that could be part of the conversation in that committee.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe one suggestion, and since we didn't advertise it for this evening, I could physically I could create another one, but I don't have another device. I'm actually hosting 4 of the breakout sessions tonight on. You can see my laptop setup, so I got 4 of them going on here, and Casey's actually helping out with one of them as well. So, but maybe at the meeting in January, just one suggestion, if the council wants to do it this way, we could do. We could figure out another way to do another subcommittee meeting if that's what the council wants to do. It won't be a problem on the technical end.
Yeah, and I would love to hear other voices if we feel as if civic education and outreach should be its own, or if we should also tag talent recruitment, retention, and acquisition onto that. I do want to recognize that we only have 15 members on this committee, and each member has to have each subcommittee has to have a facilitator and a note taker or secretary. So those are the 2 defined positions, and then 1 member who is doing, an active member without that official title. So, is there a preference? I have a preference, but I'm not, the dictator here. So,
I think those 2 committees will work well together, because I'm just thinking about the outreach that the county would need to make to get the feedback of how we can keep you here, and the outreach that the county would need to make to figure out how to get young people more involved, whether it's county government or voting or things like that, are going to be similar. So I think it would benefit if that's something that one committee could look at.
So you're saying to put those 2 together?
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial. Yeah.
I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I'm also conscious that it's Melanie and Mohammed who spoke up about it. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. We don't want to stretch ourselves too thin, recognizing we have 6 to 12 months. It's just something in looking through all the great documentation and background information that Graham provided us, that I feel if we could have a committee that incorporates that as one of its core, tenets or mission, that would be great. And obviously, I'm very passionate about it. So that sounds great to me.
Mohammed?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, yes. Is that okay with you for putting talent acquisition and retention as part of group 4?
Well, yeah, okay. Okay, I guess for now, because again, like I said, I still believe that should be like the main focus of not only the subcommittee, but actually the whole group, and because I think this is what we're lacking. This is why we have this group to make sure, because a lot of the times it is us, the young people that has to leave, and we cannot take that as that has to leave the county because of the situation that we face. So I think we should make that a priority. We'll make sure we get to stay, and also the people that come behind us also get to stay. So I mean, if for the sake of logistics, if it would be easier to do it, that would be fine. But if we can just, like, for example, if we have enough attentions, enough people that wants to engage in the outreach, that's fine. But if we don't, then I think we can just change that name and just make that, instead of outreach or just talent retention, so we can just keep it as 4. Because again, like I said, that's what I want to do. I want to be part of that, and whoever else is interested in that can also join me on that, those kind of stuff.
Okay, so we'll keep and I think when it comes to talent, I think these all go together. So we'll put talent in there as well to make sure group 4 has that. As we're meeting today, this will be kind of baseline. So you all in your committee structures will be setting, your priorities, your agenda, what you want to tackle. So I'm not prescribing anything. If you and Melanie just knock it out and saying, this is what we're doing, and this is your focus in that subcommittee, good for y'all. You have my 100% support. But just to kind of make it logistically easier with topics, we broke it down to the following. As we go forward, Mohammed, definitely everyone has the charge of the council to work on retention. and livability and attractiveness. So that should not go without notice and great attention in all of these topics. But per the survey, these 4 areas definitely popped out more than anyone else, receiving at least 40% of the vote.
I've got a quick question on logistics. Were we assigned subcommittees, or we just choose whichever one and hope that the numbers work themselves out?
Sarah, you're gonna take my next step for me. Okay, so I'm gonna do the roll call that we did earlier in the call, and you will identify which one you want to serve on. This will be your primary. I know we all have a bunch of passions, but just to make sure we get stuff done and don't over work our committee members, I ask you to choose one. So I will go through the list, and then hopefully we will have at least 3 folks in each group. All right, so Muhammad, I think I know where you want to go. Civic education, talent, yeah? Is that correct? Perfect. Ooh. All right, Sarah.
Oh gosh, I have to make a decision. Can you come back to me at the end? I'm deciding between 2.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Kiana. Kiana?
Affordable housing.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Casey?
Urban planning and zoning, please.
Of course, yeah.
No surprise there.
Wonderful. Leslie?
I think Leslie's here.
Oh, she's not. No. Okay. Natalia? No. Natalia? No. Judith? Judith? Sorry, I just killed
Got it. You got it. All civic education and outreach, please.
All right. Anna?
And Anna's absent as well.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I didn't track on this document. Diego?
Diego's absent as well.
Melanie?
The civic outreach talent, I forget exactly what we ended up calling it.
We'll rework it. Jessica?
Yeah, my preference is also the civic education and outreach and talent.
All right. Lee?
The same. However, I feel like it's going to be a really popular one. So wherever you have to plug me, I am okay with that.
Okay. Dalton?
Yeah, I'll sorry, these are some good groups. I'll go with affordable housing.
Okay. Najma?
Najma dropped off, and I've been trying to reconnect with her, but I haven't been able to see her yet.
Okay, and I can always text her as well. All right, so we don't have Najma, Diego. Do we still have a quorum? We do. All right, going back up, Sarah, do you have a preference?
Yes. So I'm deciding between urban planning and transportation connectivity. And it seems like so far we've got one other person doing urban planning. So I'm going to choose that one in the hopes that I can convince Casey to add in a little bit of transportation connectivity as well. Excellent. Thank you.
All right. So we do have 5 folks who aren't with us. So we'll keep transportation open. I'll gladly serve in transportation. Lee, can I move you? What would be your second choice since you said you were malleable?
Wherever you need bodies, I'm a big plug and play person. So whatever works for you works for me. I think they're all interesting, to be honest. So wherever I can help out, happy to.
Okay.
I think Natalia's on the call. I just didn't get her. Couldn't hear her earlier. Natalia, are you still with us?
Natalia, if you aren't able to unmute, you can also put your preference in the chat.
Yeah. Also, what about Najma? I saw her at the beginning. I think she's gone as well.
Yeah, Graham noted.
Yeah, we've been trying to reach out and figure out what happened, but haven't heard from her yet.
I think just to chime in once more, because I know I'm the one that actually suggested urban planning, if I remember correctly, and all that. I was kind of seeing it as like kind of like hubs, you know, like for people, which was why I think kind of transportation goes with it, is you obviously need to be able to get there. You want it to be, you know, walkable, accessible without giant parking lots, if you will. So I guess it depends on what the other people's preferences are, and you know, Casey, of course, you as well, and how you see transportation versus urban planning and the differences. But I'm putting it out there because there could be an opportunity to kind of combine them should, you know, numbers require it, and visions overlap as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, obviously with urban planning comes transportation planning. That's a piece of the puzzle. So I think there's some opportunity to merge those two groups potentially if we need to make sure that there are enough bodies in the different areas.
So I'm going to move that we do merge those. Are there any objections to that? Okay.
No objection. Second.
Okay, perfect. All right. So if urban planning and transportation is one, affordable housing. Looking at, and I'm sorry, we're just killing our agenda, Graham. I'm so sorry. Looking at civic education and outreach of Muhammad, Judith, Melanie, and Jessica. Did you all have I know Muhammad and Melanie have a preference for the talent portion. Jessica and Judith, did you guys have a preference for the outreach and education?
My preference is for the outreach and education.
Okay.
Yeah, mine as well. And I was also going to offer Denver, if you needed another body in a different group, I can offer myself as there. I know that one of the other groups is a bit deficient right now. I think it's is that right? Affordable housing.
Affordable housing. We have.
I know that, and I know we've got 4 already in group 4. So if you need me, I'm happy to step up. So just let me know. But answer to your question is education and outreach.
Okay, actually, so I'm seeing a new trend evolve, and where talent retention acquisition is its own subcommittee per Muhammad and Melanie's preference. Jessica and Judith, you guys can do civic education and outreach. We have urban planning and transportation, and then affordable housing. That sound good to everyone? And Graham, I'm killing you. I'm so sorry. Our wonderful sir.
It's all good.
So, and I guess just a question, I do see a lot of these having some overlap as well. So I'm assuming that it's okay for us to veer into other territories. I mean, I see civic education and outreach as a huge part of, you know, how to better the places that we create. I see the places we create as a way to attract and retain talent. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of overlap in all of these topics. So we can maybe cross work across these little groups too throughout.
Yes, and also Graham. So it will be okay, and Graham and Denver, it will be okay to be like a major player in one group, and then just add yourself in another group just to see what's going on. Is that also possible? Like, maybe like be a part of 2 groups or 3 groups if you want to, or you just have to be on one.
For this evening, it's going to be logistically impossible. But in terms of in the future, I think that there's flexibility in terms of which ones you guys want to be a part of. I think the most important thing is having a sufficient number of people within each group so that you can constitute the meeting and record it and have it roll. So I think in terms of in terms of tonight, what we'll want to make sure is that the groups that we have enough numbers of people in them, so three at least, so that we can roll with it.
Okay. Yeah, so we have 4 new committees that we just formed with a few combinations. Lee, do you have a preference between urban and, I know I already asked you, in affordable housing? I kind of want to put you with affordable housing.
Sure, yeah, works for me. And I'll probably be one of those people. My day job is reaching out with young people and like getting them to vote more and being civically involved. So I'll probably be one of those people who wants to tack on a secondary committee if possible. Just that civic engagement and outreach. But if you want to put me on affordable housing, I've got a couple ideas and I'm more than happy to help out.
Awesome. And I just got a message from Najma that she is moving out of her district at the end of next month and will be resigning from YAA. So if you all know anyone in Mason who wants to apply for that soon-to-be vacancy, please let us know. So then that puts us with Diego and Natalia. Did you ever respond? No. So, Graham, we cannot meet with fewer than 3 folks in a room.
We need to have 3. The bylaws indicate that if we can 4, but 3 is sufficient, and we'll be able to have public meetings. So.
Okay.
Do you think maybe for tonight we can, put the discussions on hold and officially assign everybody to their groups for January and like try again once we can make sure that 3 people will be in each? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So right now I have Kiana, Dalton, and Lee as affordable housing, Casey and Sarah, and I'm sure Diego would probably be really interested in transportation and urban planning as well. Jessica, Judith, and myself in civic education outreach, and Muhammad and Melanie in talent. And we have 4 folks, including Diego, who have not been assigned. So we will have at least 3 in each group, and I'm happy to move myself and be flexible if someone wants to move elsewhere. So with this, we will be needing someone to be the facilitator, aka the chair of each subcommittee. With the current rundown, is there a preference, or does anyone want to volunteer? We can start with affordable housing, Kiana, Dalton, and Lee.
I nominate Lee.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Do you accept?
Yeah, I'll accept.
Okay.
For now, at least.
Are there any nominations for subcommittee chair? Hearing none. All right. It's going to be Lee because there's no opposition. So by acclamation, he is subcommittee chair. All right. Urban planning and transportation, Casey and Sarah.
I'm okay with volunteering as chair unless you feel passionate, Sarah, or subcommittee chair, sorry.
I nominate Casey as subcommittee chair.
All right. Is there any opposition? All right. Thank you, Casey. Civic education and outreach. Jessica, do you guys have a preference? I can do it, but like.
I'm happy to do it. I can do it. Yeah.
Okay. Jessica, are you okay with that?
Yeah, sorry, Jessica. I kind of just blurted that out. I didn't.
Hilarious. I'm cool with it. Thanks.
All right, great.
Okay, cool. Any objections? Fabulous. And then Mohammed and Melanie. Is there a preference there?
I would like to nominate Mohammed.
Would you accept Mohammed?
Thank you, Melanie. Yes.
Great.
Awesome. All right, so we have subcommittee chairs. That's great. I can't email you all. So with your subcommittee, something we're going to, and I'll probably do I'm going to do a follow-up email with everyone and probably do a doodle poll to identify times in which you can meet with your subcommittee. As you can tell, we can do, a lot of stuff as a group, but you guys will really get down to the issues to meet with your subcommittee. I will encourage you all to meet every month, but every other month is fine. I mean, it's dependent on your schedules. And then your first meeting, I'm hoping, once again, you have to give Graham 2 weeks notice, correct? 72 hours?
Yeah, it's 3 working days between the time of the meeting and when I need to post all the notifications, put everything up on the internet and stuff. So I'd need a little bit more lead time to set everything up, but yeah, if you can tell me about 2 weeks in advance, that'd be great.
Okay. Hey, Graham, sorry?
I was about to, maybe Graham, I might send you a message separately because I have a lot of questions about the regulations because I feel like we are being restricted so much and I don't know why. Like, for example, we cannot talk to more than 2 members and that considered a meeting. I feel like as a group, we should have more flexibility, you know, to be able to reach out to each other to talk about things and not be afraid like we are breaking some kind of laws or some kind of rules. And again, maybe this is just my thoughts. Maybe I might reach out to you again separately, but I think if we can look to a way that we can communicate with ourselves, that would be great. Not only for the subcommittee, but also the committee itself, because I would feel bad that, you know, all of us, you know, become part of this and then not have some kind of working relationship with each other. I think that would be bad. I think we should find a way. So if we can find some kind of exceptions or something that we can communicate with each other freely. This is just something out there that I will talk to you again personally about it. You know, get to know each other more and some kind of working relationship going than just once in a month.
Yeah, absolutely. And the quick answer is we have the FOIA requirements because we're a public body that's been appointed by the board to advise the board. And so that in some task forces, some groups don't have this set of restrictions, which I believe me are cumbersome in some cases. But I think there are a lot of things that we can do in terms of communication, just even with the rules that we have. So I would I'd say that individual communication with, one additional member, for example, like if you wanted to talk to Denver, you can do that. That's not a problem. And once we have these groups together and they're formed, the subcommittee groups are formed, if we have 3 members talking, we have to, advertise as a public meeting. But beyond that, it's fairly open in terms of what we can actually do. So I would just leave you with that. But please, if you have any questions, and this goes for any of you on any of the rules and regulations, I'm here to support you and make sure that we're doing things in accordance with the rules and regulations. So it is going to be a bit cumbersome because of the FOIA requirements, but there's a lot that we can do in terms of communication to build on the work and make sure that we're doing everything in accordance with the law. So I'll just leave it at that.
And that's Virginia law. It's the FOIA Council, which is a subcommittee of elected officials. It's a joint council between the House and the Senate. We can happily, contact them and tell them we need to modify that number in the General Assembly session and see if that can happen in 2021. I highly doubt that will, unfortunately, but we can't break Virginia law since we are a formally established and ingrained in the bylaws of Fairfax County Committee. Or council, rather.
I just have a few questions. I guess my first question is Denver or Graham. Excuse me, I guess Madam Chair or Graham. That's what I read. I'm supposed to call you. So am I correct that you will share with everyone a list of who's in which committees once the members that have not been? Excellent, great. Am I correct to assume that, technically speaking, since only Casey and I right now are in the urban planning, whatever, I could technically reach out to her and we could have a chat? Cool. Third question is, I really appreciated hearing from Active Fairfax. I thought that was really great to be able to have them present, and I look forward to getting the slides and reading them closer. I'd love to hear, I guess from Graham or anyone else here. When we meet with these, experts who are presenting on their programs, how do you expect that we're able to take that? I mean, it was a 30-minute session, and implement and run and utilize that. Can you just talk a little bit more about, because I'm Like that is great to know, especially for the subcommittee that I'll be on. But I'm also thinking, well, how can we influence that back? How can this become like an ongoing two-way, conversation, to make sure that I'm, whatever work they're doing is being implemented or embedded, excuse me, into the work that we're doing here. But also if I'm, if I feel like there should be something that should be changed from their standpoint for young people, how do I, kind of bring that back up to them?
I can take that if you want. Denver, feel free to jump in whenever you'd like. But it's a great question, Sarah. And this being the the first topical meeting where we're actually going over anything of of substance beyond just kind of the structure of the group. This was one where we took the priority number one, so to speak, that was coming out of Denver's Google poll and wanted to get something kind of going and running in terms of having some information presented to the council to help them start thinking about exactly that question, which is the next step. We have experts coming in telling everybody about ongoing work, ongoing initiatives, but that's the council's goal and the point of doing this and having the breakout sessions, I guess, more than anything else, is to take that next step in the question that you're asking, which is where do we fit in and how do we influence what's ongoing, and if there's something that's not ongoing that that needs civic programming, that the young adult voice can provide, that might be the next step. So the goal is, and the ordering of this is kind of unusual because we'll have some of these subcommittees groups meet before we have the experts coming in. And so in those cases, which is most of them at this point, having that additional information that I provided for one in the email that I sent last week, that gives some of the background materials, documents, plans, initiatives, should be kind of a starting point. But if there's specific things that anybody's interested in, feel free to reach out to me, because we're not going to be able to get five speakers lined up, except over the next 5 months, unless we wanted to modify the rules in terms of when we're going to meet, which we can do, by the way. If people have an interest in meeting, more frequently, we can do that. That's not a problem. So hope that helps. But I think that the breakout sessions are intended to hone in and help answer that question exactly, which is what you're talking about, which is where do we fit in and what can we do?
Yeah, and I'm just interested, like, as well, like, practically, like, are we able to, should we kind of like, is it considered acceptable for us to start having like longer email conversations with them, like moving forward over the next year? Can we have them, I guess, come into a subcommittee again, 6 months from now, et cetera? Okay.
All of that, yes.
Yeah, and so for the next 3 meetings, 3 months that we have, we will be bringing in various Fairfax County staffers to talk about affordable housing, urban planning, we already had transportation, urban planning. We'll talk. There's a program with youth outreach, kind of doing civic engagement, and then we'll also find someone for talent acquisition. And though those topics might not directly relate to what your subcommittee is, I think it gives great perspective on other issues that are happening and how they, as we said before, how these all kind of cross over. So that was kind of my goal, is to like provide, brief information to all, and then ensure subcommittee you use the great talent and insights that Fairfax County staffers have to progress your subcommittee issue. So, I mean, staffers are our allies in this, and there's no reason for us not to use them to their greatest extent.
And just one additional thing, we have the ability with this group to bring in voices that aren't specifically Fairfax County staff as well. So don't think that those are the only people that we can bring in or invite to come speak to the group. I tapped Chris and Nicole to come and speak because they're deeply involved in the specific issue of transportation connectivity in the county. But if there's voices that are in the private sector, nonprofit sector, outside of the county, wherever that people want to have, you want to hear from them, we could do that. It's not a problem.
All right, so right now, my proposal is I will send out a giant doodle poll to figure out when people generally are available to meet for their subcommittees, and that information will be shared with the subcommittee chairs for you all to meet. It is up to you if you meet before our next meeting. Set your own schedule. Outside of Sarah and Casey, you all will have to communicate through Graham. unfortunately. So just send the email to Graham. He'll send it out to your subcommittee to figure that out. I know FOIA rules really can put a barrier on things, but if we work with them properly, it will be seamless for sure. And then you all are going to be setting your agenda, right? Transportation, urban planning is a huge topic. As I said before, we're going to be taking, the easiest way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? So we're going to take one bite, right? What is our first bite? What does that look like? And what is it accomplishing? Because at the end of the day, I think we have a really great platform to show the Fairfax County residents who've been here for 50 plus years that young professionals are here and are invested in the community and are ready to make change, and you all are the agents for that. With this, you all are working with your subcommittee, making those talents, as Muhammad noted. Once we have the subcommittee scheduled, hopefully on like a regular, like every third Wednesday basis, what have you, those will be public meetings and you all can attend each other's. Lee?
Sure, Denver. I just have a quick question, and I'm hoping maybe you or Graham can answer it, and I don't know if there's a best solution, but are we only meeting now online because the board has declared their like state of emergency? Slash, I think, is it possible to look at if that's possible to continue to going forward? Because the biggest hinder of young people is that our evenings are not as flexible as people who are retired or aren't our age. So just thinking about our committee work and subcommittee work and structure, it would be incredibly beneficial, because I'm not sure what our timeline is, but to at least continue that option going forward, and how it might benefit us to start thinking about that now.
Yeah, Lee, so we're not required to meet virtually, except as, the governor's orders require us to. I mean, currently, what is the restriction? 10 people in a room or something like that. So
will we have the option to continue to meet virtually in the future?
Oh, only currently with the current enabling legislation, it's only during the state of emergency. So
yeah, I guess that's one of my fears, is we're talking about the problems that young people have getting involved. And one of them is just, it's harder for us to be somewhere in the middle of the week. So I almost think it's easier for our committee to an extent.
I think I agree with you. And yeah, we have the ability to meet in person or electronically now. Frankly, I would be very surprised if the governor lifts the emergency even at some point during 2021, even when hopefully things are totally back to normal. It's, that's just my hunch. So I doubt that we'll be in a situation where all of a sudden, the legs get pulled out from under us and we can't meet virtually. I'd be very, very surprised.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll take that as a charge of the chair to write a letter to Chairman McKay and the board asking that they change Fairfax County policy to allow for the extension of virtual meetings of committees, advisory boards, and councils. And I'll share that draft letter with you all. Probably will get it done. God, Christmas is already next week almost. Pretty soon. I'll shoot out to you all as soon as I can. And I want that to be known, right? If there's something like this, and especially Muhammad bringing up really great points with the FOIA restrictions, we have that voice, we have that platform. So if you are like, we need to do a letter, right? It might not be under talent, it might not be under civic, affordable housing, but it's a barrier. We can easily write letters and advocate. That's why we're here. So if you see issues arising, please feel free to share. Our main meetings, in addition to our subcommittee meetings, we'll be sharing what we're working on, issues, what we need to be successful, and other, pillars or where we connect and where we can advocate together for.
Anyway, guys, I might have to leave right now because my time is up. But yeah, thanks, and I'll see you guys the next time.
Well, Muhammad took the words out of my mouth. If there's no other business, does anyone have any other questions?
I just had one quick question. I'm not sure what it is. Based on the topic of letters, I know we do have a big project, that zoning ordinance modernization project that Rachel Flynn had mentioned at the last meeting. And it's going to be interesting with timing because I do think it's something that this group would be interested in writing a letter, or at least, hearing about the project and either deciding if they wanted to support or, or oppose any piece of the project. It's starting the public hearings though, the end of January and early February. The board probably won't take it up till March. So I'm not sure if that's something that we can look at having some speakers, or if Sarah and my subcommittee should look into that and, then pose the topic as for the group on if a letter needs to be written. But I just wanted to throw that out there since the timing is rapidly approaching on that project wrapping up.
Yeah, Casey, we should be able to share information with Graham and he can share it out to the group.
Yes,
and I can put it part of the survey and say, like, what do you think? Do we should, we'll add it to there.
That would be great. Thank you.
Of course. All right, anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for staying with us 8 past the designated time. We weren't able to break out in our breakout groups as planned, but I think we have some really great foundation under us. Being at our first real meeting outside of getting to know each other and setting up procedures. I'm really happy with what we've done, and I really appreciate you all showing up, being your authentic self, and being dedicated to this cause. So thank you, and I guess Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2021.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I didn't have a formal meeting to vote to adjourn. Is that okay, Graham?
It's over now.
It's over now. You adjourned. I'm so sorry.
No worries. No, it doesn't. Frankly, it's okay.
Okay. All right.
You can do it at the next meeting is you can do. You can just let people know we adjourned. It's okay. So.
I'll put that. Okay. All right. We adjourned at 8:39.
8:39. Yep. All good.
Okay. Sorry. Procedure.